You know, in the world of aviation, some events happen so fast and are so catastrophic, they leave investigators with a puzzle that seems almost impossible to piece together. Today, we're going to break down the preliminary report on one of those exact tragedies, the final, fatal 32 seconds of Air India Flight 171.
And the first thing you have to understand is just the scale of the human tragedy here. When that aircraft came down, the result was a staggering 260 fatalities. That's 241 people on the plane, and tragically, another 19 on the ground.
But here's the twist. Amidst all of that devastation, a single passenger survived. And that one fact, that one person making it out, just makes the mystery of how this could even happen even deeper.
Okay, so to really get a handle on what went wrong, we have to start with how right everything seemed to be. This was supposed to be just another totally normal, routine flight.
So, let's set the scene. We're talking about Air India Flight 171, a long-haul trip from Ahmedabad, India, all the way to London. The plane was a Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner, a really modern, sophisticated jet with 230 passengers and 12 crew members on board.
What's truly mind-boggling here is just how fast this all happened. The entire event, from the very first sign of trouble to the final impact, was over and done in just 32 seconds. The timeline of those few moments is absolutely chilling. Just look at this. At second 0, you have a completely normal liftoff. 2 seconds later, they're climbing just like they should be. But then, bam! Just 3 seconds after that, at a mere 625 feet off the ground, both engines just die. A complete loss of thrust. For the next 15 seconds, you can imagine the pilots desperately fighting to restart them, but there just wasn't enough time. 32 seconds after leaving the runway, the flight was over.
So you gotta ask, right? How did two state-of-the-art engines just quit at the exact same time, during the most critical part of the flight? Well, the preliminary report points to something surprisingly simple and, honestly, deeply puzzling.
It all comes down to these, the fuel control switches. Now you can think of these as the master on-off switches for the engines. Put it in run, fuel flows, engine works, flip it to cutoff, and the fuel supply is instantly severed, the engine immediately shuts down.
The sequence of events here is just terrifyingly simple. For takeoff, the switches were in the run position, exactly where they should be. But then, just seconds after the plane was airborne, something, or someone, moved both of them to cutoff. And the result was instantaneous and catastrophic. A total loss of power from both engines.
And this is what made the situation an absolute nightmare. A modern jet, like the 787, is designed to fly perfectly fine on just one engine. But losing both at once, especially right after takeoff when you're low and slow, it's a completely different story. There simply wasn't enough altitude or time to get them restarted.
And that right there, that brings us to the very heart of this mystery. Investigators know what happened. The engines were cut off. But the preliminary report leaves the single most important question of all completely unanswered.
Why? Why on earth did two critical switches get moved to the cutoff position at the worst possible moment imaginable? Answering that one question is now the entire focus of the investigation.
So the report lays out a few main paths they're exploring. You can basically group them into two camps. Was it a problem with the plane or a problem with the people? They're looking into a mechanical fault, an electrical issue, something wrong with the switches themselves. But they also have to consider an accidental move by the crew, or something far more deliberate, sabotage, or a catastrophic human error.
And this is what makes the whole mystery so incredibly difficult. These aren't just simple toggle switches. They have physical locking mechanisms built in, designed for the specific purpose of preventing a pilot from accidentally shutting down an engine. To move them requires a deliberate two-step action. So how did both get moved?
So with all these unanswered questions, the focus now shifts to the ongoing investigation and what's probably going to be a long road to finding definitive answers. Now, it is really critical to remember that everything we've talked about is based on the preliminary findings. This is not the final word. The official cause of the crash has not yet been determined, and this information could change as the investigation keeps going.
And this isn't just a local investigation either. Because aviation is so global, the top agencies are all collaborating. We're talking the UK's Air Accidents Investigation Branch and the US National Transportation Safety Board. The world's best are working to find out what really happened here.
Which leaves us with the final, lingering question.
With the flight recorders recovered and the world's best investigators on the case, will the final report solve the mystery? Because given how intentionally those switches have to be moved, the answer they find, whether it's mechanical, accidental, or deliberate, is going to have profound implications for the future of air travel.